All right, well, welcome to another edition of the Sports Guys. Glad you're here with us this week. We are here to do the Olympic wrap-up show. We had a huge response to our first Olympics episode. We had over 10,000 views within the first 10 days of that episode. So I want to thank all of you very much for watching. We really had fun making that episode. So we decided it's time to do the back end of the Olympics, which is the wrap-up, and really look at how did Team USA do. And we're going to really look at all the stars that emerged from this Olympics and all the big moments, good and bad, and some of the controversies. So we're going to really go through all of that with you guys tonight. How you doing, Robbie?
Doing very well, thank you.
Do you have fun with this Olympics? You enjoy watching it with the boys?
I really did. The boys were really into it. I had fun. It came at a great time. I love the Olympic summers. Um, Obviously, summer's a really fun time, but it's not a great time for sports. And anytime there's World Cup or Olympics, it spices up that summer. So it definitely added a lot to this year.
You talked about how summer is kind of a dead zone for sports and that you don't have
Yeah,
football, you don't have all the fall sports, hockey, basketball.
yeah.
You
I,
do have baseball, but that's about it.
I love going to a Durham Bulls game, a minor league park, or a professional MLB game, but it doesn't fill in the whole summer. Like football's on constantly when it's on,
But
most days.
I think there's something extra about the Olympics. It's not just that. It does fill the summer for sure,
Yeah.
but it's every 4 years. There's
Well,
something
yeah.
about every 4 years. It just makes it super special.
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime something is scarce, it has more value. So, um, uh, the Olympics is a good time to listen to exemplary people who work hard at something, who have usually some pretty amazing stories of hardship. The people around them had to sacrifice a lot with them, either time or money or travel, or a lot of sacrifice, a lot of selflessness, a lot of hard work, and doing it for love of country and for to push yourself and see how great you can become at something. If you're an outstanding athlete, you want to see how outstanding you are and measure yourself against the best.
Yeah.
I love things that are the best. I tip my hat anytime a team starts to become a dynasty or something. So the Olympics, that stuff mixed with the fact that it comes at a vacuum of sports in the summer, um, combines to a really fun couple weeks for
And
sure
you
every
mentioned
year.
something there that is true. You have country versus country. That also makes it special. So you have scarcity every 4 years.
Yeah,
You also
yeah,
have country versus country, and people can
yeah,
get, patriotic, maybe sometimes
yeah.
only patriotic every 4 years for the Olympics.
I
But,
think, you and I grew up overseas a lot of our lives, and so it kinda made us patriotic, sort of yearn for American things. So maybe that's more than the average person who, all they see is problems in America or whatever. But for us, we were always looking for American things when we were overseas. I would lose my mind if I came across a bag of Doritos, or, those are little
that's
things that
true.
Americans take for granted. So it's very easy for us to go crazy rooting for America in the World Cup,
Right.
in any kind of world championships. When an American fencer is going up against a French one or something, like nothing against any other country we're going against, but we're rooting for the U.S. and it's a really cool event. There's a lot of sports in there that you'll watch every 4 years, but not in between. I'm not going to watch that speed cycling where they go around the internal track, inside track, except at the Olympics. But it's still
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm. No, that's right. No, and I think that, every time an American gets to watch an American win a medal, whether it's a gold or a bronze, there's something about it. It makes, the hair stand up on your arm, and it just makes you feel proud and patriotic. And you're getting to watch somebody who's been struggling their entire life. Like, let's say a swimmer, they've been in the pool at 5 a.m. since they were
Yeah.
6 years old, 3 times a day kind of thing. And they've completely dedicated their lives to winning that medal. And when they finally do, there's just something very satisfying to watching them do it. And
And it's very satisfying because you know how hard they had to work for that. You don't know exactly how many times they had to get in the pool, or at what times, what mornings, what days they had to go lift weights when they didn't feel like it. But you imagine how much of that was going on. And so when somebody works that hard and overcomes, and maybe they had a disappointing world championships and now they're trying to come back and they win it, it's just really cool. Like you can tip your hat saying, man, that must feel good, you know.
And you're right. It's those days where you don't feel like it, and yet you force yourself to go train anyway. You know, those are
That's
the
the
days that,
discipline. That's the
yeah.
discipline part of it is because it's not hard to do it when you're feeling great and you want to go jump in the gym and start lifting or whatever. It's when you're feeling a little down or a little sick or a little depressed or
Mhm.
whatever, not feeling perfect. Those are the days that really make champions.
You know what Katie Ledecky said in an interview this time. She's now become the most decorated female swimmer of all time. I thought she would too. And she said that she had those days sometimes where she didn't want to get in the pool, but she said after about 10 minutes of warming up,
Yeah.
and after she's sitting there chasing her American record and she hits it in practice, she's like, there was nothing like it. She wanted to get in the pool again the next day. Kind of, 'cause, you just have to
Yeah.
love it, you know?
Yeah. And you tip your hat when another country has that same kind of, you
Yeah.
know, when they reach that apex, you're like, nah, that's pretty good.
When I was watching Titmus win medals for the Australians on the women's side, or when I was watching Marchand for
Yeah.
France just
Mhm.
absolutely sweep up with his 5 gold medals this time, you
Yeah.
know, I had no malice at all towards him. I was proud of him, and he has the same college coach as Michael Phelps. He's trained hard. He swam very hard for Arizona State University, and now he's winning gold medals. So there you go.
Mm.
So it's good stuff. A lot of surprising and interesting moments out of this Olympics. What are some of the ones that come to mind for you, either good or bad?
So many. At first, just the fact that we went to high school in France, just seeing all the backdrops of places that I have a lot of memories of that place was really cool. Not just that it's the Olympics and you can kind of get geeked up and put on your USA stuff and get crazy about circling certain events that you definitely want to watch, women's soccer or whatever. But the fact that it was in Paris to us really means something. I know a lot of people can have different opinions on Paris, especially not so much France, but Paris is a different beast. But we have really good memories there. We had an amazing little part of our life that was there, and so seeing that backdrop, seeing the French people going crazy, proud of their teams. You know, like for instance,
Mhm,
their rugby team. You know, they went nuts. That was cool to watch that. But overall memories, just so many of the gold medal matches. I really liked some of the surprises, like
mhm. Me too.
the women's fencing finalist who was pregnant, who won the gold. Um, just a lot of the surprise ones, and then also it's really cool to see the champion do it. You know, I loved back in the day. Usain Bolt was supposed to win, and he did. Like that's cool when somebody can hold serve, you know, and
Mhm.
um, so a lot of the champions, and then there were surprises. There were some poor performances. You feel bad for them. Some of the men's relay stuff, and there was just some weird letdown performances. But I'll never forget the American who finished last in the one of the swimming events. He was just crying so hard. That must really hurt to train that hard and to not just not win, but to come in last.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Overall, Team USA did amazing, but there were some performances that were a little upsetting for a person, and then to watch
Yeah,
them
I
go
mean,
through that was
to
tough.
watch both men and women beach volleyball, we had 4 really top teams, and none of the 4 of them medaled. That was
Yeah,
really surprising. There were a couple sports that US didn't perform well. Overall, though, this was the United States' best performance ever for as an Olympic team, which surprised me because about 6 days into the Olympics, we were struggling. We were in about 4th on the
yeah.
medal board, and it really looked like maybe this was the year that we weren't going to do it. And then the way we closed out the last week and a half was really astounding. I mean, pretty much
I
swept
think
almost everything.
I think that's how it looked somewhat, but at the same time, I think it really was the way that the events were laid out. Um, the rugby and the soccer, men's at least, was never going to play into our thing, and those were the ones that started early.
True.
Some of the first day one, regular day one events weren't necessarily some of our best. They really saved some of the big events towards the end: basketball, swimming, track, and those were ones we excel at. So I think it looked like we got better as the Olympics went on. I think it was just really more about the events themselves, how they were scheduled. But
Yeah. Well, but even the first week, you had, of course, swimming is a huge strength of ours.
Mhm.
And even in the first week, a lot of the events in swimming that we should have won in, we kind of struggled in, either got silvers or bronzes. And then towards the end of the first week, we started dominating in the swimming pool.
Yeah,
We started getting a lot of
I
goals.
think
And so
swimming is a good
it just,
example of where we got a little better, and
Mhm.
then finished strong. But for the most part, I think the whole overall Olympics, we did well in the events we were supposed to. There were surprises to the good and to the bad. We won some things that we don't normally, and also we dropped the ball in a few places. We just weren't very good in 3-on-3 basketball and things like that. But for the most part, we won the things we were supposed to. We were
Mhm.
competitive in the things we were supposed to be, and I think a lot of the event planning put the less popular events early.
So,
For the most part, swimming started early, but a lot of the other events we weren't very good at, and so it was not that surprising to see a lot of teams jump up ahead of us in medal count early.
for me, the biggest moments in the Olympics, number one, are what you're talking about. We went to high school in Paris, and to watch this Olympics, this modern Olympics in Paris in 2024, the backdrop of these venues was just so beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
watching the equestrian events out at Versailles, and I was watching events that I would never watch otherwise, just because I wanted to see the backdrop in Paris and the surrounding areas of France. So that was really cool. But then maybe the most surprising moment of the whole tournament was the USA Sevens rugby team was down 3 points to
Hmm.
Australia and was
Women.
sitting around its 5 yard line
Hmm.
with about 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter. And it looked very dire. It looked like this was not going to happen for
Yeah.
Alana Meyer and her team. And somehow we got into a play where we had a ruck and we took the ball, pitched it out to a girl who broke 3 tackles, goes the distance. And it just, I mean, to watch the face of the American team who just realized they just won the bronze medal,
Hmm.
and to watch the face of the Australian girls who had won the gold in 2020, who now
Yeah.
realized they were not medalists, and they were all crying. It just was so epic. What an incredible moment.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it was nice being on the right side of that. um,
for sure.
my heart
Well,
went out to the
what a
Australian
great
women.
run.
They were
What a
they
great
were
run.
incredible, but um, that's the agony of this whole thing is when you're not on the good side of the great performance or the great action. Um, it's kind of devastating. But then
I was,
you pick yourself up
but
and
I
you
was
and
just
you get
thinking,
under
just
the next one.
technically, that play technically, like all they had to do was get her to the ground. But at the same time, you look at the technique she used by using her arm. She was carrying the ball, but she was using her arm in a really expert way by pushing these girls off. I guess that's something you learn to do when you're carrying the rugby ball. But
Hmm.
it was just
Well,
really cool to see her break those tackles.
I'll tell you, in 15s that would not have been a score. So the beauty of sevens is every person has to put their man down or woman down. You have to make that tackle, or that person might be gone. There's not a lot of back support, extra people who can come in to make these tackles.
That's
And
right.
if you have a fast person beat their person one on one, it's kind of like going 5 wide in football, and it's one on one coverage. You can't let the person buy you. You can't
Mhm.
get beaten if you're the corner. So there's a lot more space in sevens, a lot more gaps. If you can bust a tackle, sometimes you can go to the house. That's the beauty
Right.
of sevens, really.
I
It's
think
not as
other big moments I'd point to the girl who won the long distance biking race, who was ranked about 50th in the world
Mhm.
for the United States. That was a huge shock. Same kind of thing she did as Cole Hawker. She essentially waited her turn, sitting around fifth or sixth the entire race,
Mhm.
and then somehow found this kick at the end. And I was on the phone with you actually when this was happening. I was
Yeah,
telling you what was happening,
you were
and
giving me play by play. It was pretty cool
and
because
going
I
up
was
the
I
Champs.
was driving.
Yeah, and essentially she had to go up and down the Champs Elysees twice to win it, and she took the lead about halfway through the first time up the Champs Elysees, and then obviously coming back the other way, she kept the lead, and That was, I mean, there were moments like that throughout. I really enjoyed this Olympics. The events were great.
Yeah.
Some of the wrestling events we won that we weren't supposed to. You mentioned the fencing. Not only was the
Yeah.
woman who American pregnant who won it, but she was
She
facing
beat
another
America.
American,
Yeah.
who got the silver. So
Which is
um,
wild because fencing is very French. You know, they're very good at it.
we won some weightlifting events on the women's side that I'm not sure we would have if the Russians had been there. Um, it just was overall fantastic, as you'll see
Mhm.
when we look through the medal count.
I'll tell you what, that reminds me of a time I was on the Champs-Élysées during the finish of the Tour de France. And what was cool is this French Olympics was able to bring in all the best of France, you know. Versailles for equestrian events. How could you dream up something cooler than that? And bringing in the Tour de France finish, which is this most incredibly exciting thing. We lined both sides of the Champs-Élysées, and to
Yeah,
have the bikes go down there full speed with their motorcycle entourage protection teams, and just to have them zip down and then have them go around and come back and go around it's well, it
it
was
was
so
awesome.
cool to watch the finish that they would do for the Tour de France as an Olympic finish. It was really cool.
Well,
It took me
the
back
reason I
to that.
love all those the reason I love those kind of events is because then once she wins the gold unexpectedly, then they go into her backstory, and you find out that she's just this girl from Iowa
Mhm.
who started riding her bike after college. She started at 24 years old riding her bike because she wanted to get in shape.
Yeah.
That was it. That was it. It wasn't to be on an Olympic team.
Yeah, and what's so
And then
funny is the moment that they discover she's good at it, and she starts to be, like, put into a higher level, and then she's really, really good at it, and then just to watch the
yeah,
advance.
but like just think about it. She just picked it up as kind of like a hobby after
I know.
college. She didn't even do it
But
in high
isn't
school.
but isn't that funny? Just think in the humanity of it. How many of us are walking around with a gift that we're not even aware of? You know, like, if
Yeah,
I
she
just
was.
pick up a guitar for the first time in my life and I just
Yeah.
start playing it, maybe I'm good at it, and I had no idea.
She's like, "I
She
just
she
wanted to
was
get into shape. I just want to
she
get in
was
shape."
good at
Like,
bike riding on a level that's world class, and she had no idea, you know?
what
It's
about the
funny.
discus girl? You talked about that story. I mean, what a
Yeah.
huge story. Tell us about
Sh
that one.
she was um, a track star in college, but the discus team had, some spaghetti night that was really, really popular, and everyone wanted to go to it, but you could only go if you threw projectiles. I guess discus, shot put, they were
Yeah.
all allowed to go to spaghetti night. And so she said, "I wanna go to spaghetti night." And I'm like, "Sorry, you just run track. You'll have to do a projectile of some kind." She's like, "All right, fine. I'll do discus so I can go to spaghetti night." It's the same thing. All of a sudden, she's finding this skill she had no clue she was good at, and she's just really good at throwing the discus, and then she wins the gold medal. Like,
Wins the gold
she
medal at
shouldn't even
Paris.
she shouldn't even be a discus thrower, you know what I mean?
I know.
I love that. Those kind of stories are just hilarious. And they make
Fantastic.
us all have encouragement that we're walking around with all these little hidden talents that we don't even know we're good at, you know?
And then you mentioned, teams that were supposed to win and did. Both basketball teams won. There was a lot of controversy around the women's team, whether Caitlin Clark should have been there or not. People like Stephen A. Smith were saying, yes, she absolutely should have been there, even if she was the 14th person on the bench. Um, but, whether she was or not, I was rooting for them to win, and they did. Their eighth straight gold medal, by the way, which is pretty amazing, the kind of domination. And
Yeah.
then the men's team struggled a little bit more than we thought they would. The rest of the world has kind of caught up on the men's side, but at the same time, it still didn't feel like it was really in doubt, even though we were
Yeah,
playing
I
with
agree.
these good teams.
There were a couple scare games, but for the most part, I think the more the pressure was on, the better they looked. I feel like it's not fair to compare previous dream teams and stuff because they didn't have to face the level of competition
No,
that
not at
these
all.
guys did. I personally think the dream team would have beaten this team, but I think what this team did was more special because they had to go beat 61 NBA players.
That's right. That's
And
exactly right. You play France in
the
the final, and France is loaded with NBA talent.
yeah, the NBA has become much more international than it used to be. It used to be a little bit international. There was always like an Argentinian over here and one Croatian. But back then, the Dream Team had to face, I think it was 7 or 8 NBA players, and this team had to face 61. So it's clearly harder competition. I don't know how this U.S. team would have done against that U.S. team. That's a debate that you can have. But I know that the competition they played was harder, and so there wasn't going to be a blowout every game like that.
And is,
So
and is there any doubt that Steph Curry is the greatest clutch shooter of all time?
no,
I
I
mean,
think yeah, I think he's the
in terms
greatest.
of what he did for his legacy, not only did he win a gold medal, but the last 3 games of that tournament, he just was always the dagger in the heart of the other team every single time.
Yeah, but especially in the final, like he was special that day. Um, I think it showed you how much talent was on Team USA. Where Kevin Durant looked early on like the MVP.
Mhm.
And then LeBron did have some really, really good games. They had a lot of talented players on that team. And
There's so
so,
much talent that I know the Celtics fans were really angry because Tatum was getting like 5 minutes a game.
yeah,
Jason
that's right.
Tatum, who's an NBA champ, essentially was a deep bencher on this team.
Yeah, that's right.
And, yeah, that's how much talent you're talking about. So, anyway, a lot
Yep.
of special moments. Obviously, the women's soccer team won gold as they were expected to, but they did it in a really interesting way this time. They scored very few goals. They were averaging 1 to 2 goals a game. They were
Mm.
winning a lot of games 1-0, and they were doing it with defense and goalkeeping, and they
The
had really
defense was
solid,
very impressive.
super
Very
solid.
impressive.
Gave up very few goals the whole tournament, and
Yep.
won the final 1-0 against Brazil again. So it was
Mhm.
exciting from a standpoint. If you like defense in soccer, this was your
Mhm.
tournament. So anyway, a lot of good moments there.
I think we
Well, let's
had
go.
some special girls up front too, where I talk to the boys about this a lot. They play soccer. There's always a tendency to try and get the perfect shot where you keep dribbling until it's perfectly on your foot in a perfect way. And the best players in the world can finish without everything being perfect. They get one, maybe you give Messi one shot in the whole game
Right.
and he's going to bury it. And
But you
so,
know how they say there's finishers? It's the same in basketball. There's
yeah.
finishers.
Yeah,
And,
but it's different than basketball because you have so many fewer opportunities.
right.
Um, a lot of times Messi will get triple covered all over the field, and he just sees himself in that role as a distributor, and he's going to try and line up somebody else to score. But if you leave him one opening, he's going to bury it. And so,
Mhm.
I think we had those kind of killers up front for the U.S. where it might be the 89th minute and it's 0-0, but our girl's going to get her opportunity right there and she's going to bury it. And so
Mhm.
it wasn't a high scoring group, but I think they took advantage of opportunities. They didn't squander much.
Mhm.
Um, I think maybe this wasn't our best midfield team we've ever had.
They had
Uh,
the fewest amount of shots I've ever seen from a US national
right,
team, but
right.
you're right, they made them count when they came up.
They were finishers. And so
Whether it
that's
was
special.
Mallory up front or whether it was Trinity Rodman or, they
Yeah.
seemed to make it count when they had a chance.
Yeah. A lot of those goals were like late in the game. One cross
Let
comes and they get it in.
let's take a look at, some of our material here.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so this is our Paris Olympic wrap-up show. How did the USA perform? Our episode 27. You can see the final medal count. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but USA and China come in tied at 40. USA wins the overall medal count by 35 medals with 126. And so if you look back at our 2020 performance, we had 39 golds and 113. So this time we got one more gold and 13 more total medals. China comes in second, which is kind of to be expected. Great Britain, as the last couple of Olympics has happened, they've really been coming up. It used to be they'd be around 10, then they were 8, then they were 6. Last two Olympics, they've been sitting in third without Russia there. Um, and France had an unbelievable Olympics this time.
Mhm.
They're way above what they
They always
usually
do,
do.
though. Every home team always does better
Yeah.
than they normally do, always.
They got 20 medals above what they usually get. So
And you
if
know
you
what?
don't think if you don't think home doesn't help, it does.
I always feel like having the Olympics, you deserve a little more medals. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
No,
you
that's right.
deserve all the work you're putting in to, like, get the place ready and everything. You
And
deserve
then
it.
you look at how the top five rounds out with Australia. That doesn't surprise me. And they had like 20 something medals just in the pool alone.
Hmm.
And then Japan sitting in sixth. They had a lot of medals too, especially in gymnastics. They really swept up
Yeah.
in events like that. So, any surprises here for you on how the final medal
Yeah,
count
I
came out?
think I think you can't take away the fact that Ukraine got 12 medals while their home is raging war. I mean,
Yeah,
I I
good
don't know
point.
how that happens. I think that's incredible. Are these people all training while there's gunshots flying over top? Are they in different countries training? I can't believe that's possible.
Hmm.
That's incredible to me.
What
I
about
think
Uzbekistan?
Canada's number being that low is kind of sad.
Yeah.
Um,
What about Uzbekistan?
yeah, Uzbekistan. I mean, it's incredible. I have heard that there's different ways you can look at excellent achievement in the Olympics. You can look at it as total golds is the only thing that counts. You can look at the total medal count that counts. You can look at I've seen per capita, and the U.S. and China at the top are not near the top in per capita per medal. So it just kind of depends on how you look at it. I personally believe that the overall medal count to me is the most important because it shows
Mhm.
that you're
Me too.
competitive on a world level in
In
that
every
event,
sport,
in
essentially,
every
almost
sport.
everything. Mhm.
So, but I understand the argument that goals are the only thing that counts. But I think getting a medal in as many sports as possible, that makes you relevant on the stage because if you got a bronze, then you could have gotten a gold if you just got a little better, a little harder, a little faster, whatever. Um, Another thing that's interesting with all this is they did the psychology of it, and they said the bronze medal winners were way happier than the silver medal winners,
It's true.
which
Yep.
is crazy, but it's true. Psychologically, the idea that you got a medal versus not getting a medal is so much higher than when you're silver. You lost to somebody else, so you came in second. You know, you weren't the champion. So even though bronze is lower than silver, the happiness level for the bronze medalists was so much higher, and it's just
That's a
funny.
really good point. It's a
It's
really good point.
human psychology.
So here's my question to you to wrap this up. What are the 3 countries that are the most surprising to you on this list? What 3 countries are most
Ukraine
surprising?
is number one.
Ukraine's number 1. Okay.
Number one. I think it's gentle, but I would think Canada would be higher than that. Um, and Hungary, maybe.
Mhm, okay.
I don't think of them as a very athletic country.
For me, it's Ukraine number 1. I agree with you there. Second would be Uzbekistan, which is a very
Yeah.
small country. Has about 11 million people.
Hmm.
And the third would be Germany. I don't understand why a country of 100 million people, that's the strongest country in Europe, essentially, is sitting so low. It seems like
Because
they
this is the
never do
summer.
very well. Maybe it's summer. Yeah, because in
It's
winter,
Summer
they do really
Olympics, yeah,
well.
it's not their thing.
You think so?
Yeah, that's why I don't think Russia would be that high up there either, but I think their Olympic medal count spread it around to everyone, got a little bit more than normal, but I don't think they
But even
wouldn't have been.
in soccer, they were a little disappointing, like, which is their sport, and
Yeah,
then, like, they don't even have a rugby sevens team, I don't think. If they do, it's not relevant.
I don't know.
You're right, and then track and field, I would think they'd be
Yeah,
doing really well in things like discus and javelin. I
I
don't
think
know.
Germany tries to dominate in winter events. It's cold there, you know,
It
it's
seems like Hungary seems to win a lot of the medals that I would think Germany would win. I don't know, like
yeah,
weightlifting, wrestling.
yeah.
It's interesting. Alright, so
But
moving
what I'm
on to
not surprised by is that France did better than normal. That's not a surprise.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Moving on to, biggest USA stars of the 2024 Olympics. I have 2
Mhm.
slides. Starts with Simone Biles, who's just become the most decorated, US gymnast of all time, both men and female. So obviously she did what she was supposed to do, won the overall gold and won a couple of individual golds. Noah Lyles wins the premier event in track and field, which is the 100-meter, which, the, United States had not won in a couple of Olympics, largely because the, Jamaicans had taken over. So he won that event. He ended up becoming bronze in the 200 because he had COVID, which is pretty amazing that he even medaled at all. Gabby Thomas and McLaughlin Lavroney are not just stars and won multiple golds, but are maybe two of the most marketable Olympians we have coming out of this Olympics. The two of them are,
Mhm.
you're going to see them on every Wheaties box. You're going to see them all
Mhm.
over the place. You have Alona Meyer, who became the star from the women's rugby team and the captain from the
Yeah,
team that
she's the
medaled.
most followed Olympian on Instagram.
Right.
She has like
Exactly.
millions of followers. It's crazy.
Exactly. And then in the middle there, you got Katie Ledecky, who's now the most decorated women's swimmer of all time, kind of like Michael
Mhm.
Phelps, kind of the ambassador now of women's swimming, has medaled at 4 different Olympics, which is just astounding.
You know what's interesting about Ledecky? She's not just a leader for US women's swimming. The men actually use her for inspiration. They
Hmm.
were constantly asking her to speak to their team, and they said that she's their leader. So
Yeah,
that's amazing
that's true.
that the men's, not that there's anything amazing about a woman being, you know, so
You know,
exemplary, but just that she was able to inspire them to work harder.
you know what it is about when I saw that interview with her this time. You know what it is? Is she loves the sport so much. It's unbelievable. She has so much respect for it. And, I just see her as being our women's coach one day. I can't
Oh
imagine
yeah,
her not getting into coaching, and maybe
yeah.
the whole Olympic team, men and women,
Yeah,
in
when
the
she's
swimming
done
team.
with her schooling and everything, she'll probably become a top women's swimming coach or men's swimming coach at one of the major universities,
Like
Stanford, Virginia,
Stanford or something, yeah, or
Virginia.
Arizona State, which seems to be a hotbed of
Yeah,
swimming right now.
Arizona State.
So some of the other stars here, you got Team USA, both men's and women's, did what they were expected to do. You have the men's 4x100 relay took the lead event in the swimming pool, which was a big win because they actually were projected to be silver to the Australians. So that was a big win for us. And then, of course, Steph Curry kind of cemented what was already an incredible Hall of Fame legacy with his dagger shots in the last 3 games of the tournament.
Mhm.
Any overall thoughts about these top stars coming out of Olympics?
I think it's pretty cool when there's a great athlete or a great team that's supposed to win. I think it's easier to not win when everyone's gunning for you and you have to have the perfect race or the perfect game or you have to hit your perfect shots, whatever. I think it shouldn't be overlooked when greatness is great. And I think if you're favored and you win it, you shouldn't just be like, okay, move on. It should be, you should spend some time in those people's wins too, because they're not only winning, but they're winning. And then people just kind of go, well, of course they're supposed to win. It's pretty outstanding when everyone's gunning for you and you still win.
Hmm.
Something should be said for the mindset that it takes to carry through and get the gold when you're supposed to, because nothing is perfect in life. And a lot of times you might get a slow start out of the blocks, or you might be shooting poorly, or you might be leaving, getting into the pool a little slow, or something can happen
Yeah,
and you're not a
that's right.
champion that day. It can happen. And
Well,
so,
this has always been my point, especially in basketball. Like, I know that I always argue with my son over whether LeBron or Michael Jordan was the best ever, right?
yeah.
And my argument has been not only is Michael 6-0 in the finals, which is when it really counts, and LeBron is 3-4, right? But I just always felt like Michael was the greatest clutch shot maker of all time in the NBA, in NBA
Mm.
history. I still feel that way. But I now look at Curry as that kind of guy who just puts the dagger in with a minute left and makes the big three that you got to have, kind of thing. And to me,
Well,
that separates the greats from the goods.
what I would say about that is I agree with you that Jordan was the greatest ever, and that's a debate for a different time. But the reason is because he could do things no one else could do. But when he sat on the bench and they were drawing up a play, last second shot, in the finals, and he looks at Steve Kerr and says, "They're going to double me. The ball's coming to you. You better hit it." It made Kerr reach down and do the best shot he could possibly do, and it made him his best because he
Yeah.
knew that Jordan trusted him and transferred some of that aura and that demand of himself. And Kerr hit, and Kerr said, "I knew I was going to hit it." Like, he made the guys around him better by demanding that they're as good as he is on this one play.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I've ever seen LeBron elevate his guys because he had that power. I think LeBron has won championships when he was surrounded by good players, and he has lost championships when he was the best player and no one else was close. And I think Jordan won because he had Pippen, but he also had guys around him who could elevate because he elevated them. So if you look at this in a team dynamic, how many of these guys make their guys around them or girls around them better? Probably Simone Biles does. Katie
Yeah.
Ledecky probably does. I don't know how it all transfers in every sport, but the reason Jordan was better was because he made the players around him better by demanding the best from them. And so that's something special in a team dynamic.
Could not agree more. Let's take a look at some of the other big athletes that came out of this Olympics and are going to have lots of opportunities with commercials and endorsements. Top ones up there on the top left are 4x100 team one. You have on the bottom left, you have the USA girls soccer team, like we talked about, took care of business, although a lot more defensively this time. You have other big teams that won. You have up there in the middle top, you have the cycling track, women's inside track pursuit team that won the gold. You have Scotty Scheffler there in the middle, won the golf gold medal. It was kind of touch and go whether he was going to be able to win that or if it was going to be Rory McIlroy, somebody like that. You have the women's 4x100 medley relay in the pool, also won the premier event there with 2 UVA people in that pool. Speaking of University of Virginia swimmers, I've got a picture there on the top center with the 3 main UVA swimmers that won medals, and we won 12 total medals as a school, which is really impressive for the USA team. And then, of course, on the track, you had some really great relay teams there on the women's side. So any thoughts about some of these other big athletes?
No, I think these are examples of where we have world champion swimmers and track people, and more often than not, they showed that greatness. Every now and then there'd be an upset, there'd be an American who would come in second or third or something. But for the most part, I think our athletes showed up and they were champions. But the world was tough. What was cool was that it seemed like the U.S. was always battling with a different country. So it was the U.S. versus somebody else. In this
Yeah, and
event,
I
it would
think
be
that
Uzbekistan, or in that event, it would be France, or in that event, it would be, Germany or whatever.
and I think
But it was
about all
always
these
the US
great,
that's more often.
amazing athletes that we're fortunate to have in the United States, and you have to realize all
Yeah,
these people train every single day, and they give their entire lives to these sports. And when I ask you a question like, why doesn't Germany do better? And I sit there and think to myself, they just can't compete in a lot of these sports against the athletic prowess that we have in a country of 330 million, I guess.
I guess.
That's one.
But
And then,
Why doesn't China win 3 times as many as we do? Because they have 6 times our population, right?
something like that, or
Why don't they? Why
five
don't
times.
they? Why don't they have 5 times our medals? It's just the DNA of our athletes is strong, and other countries are
We
going
have championship DNA, is what you're saying.
other
That's what
other countries are going to beat us sometimes, but it's always going to be their best against the American. And then in a totally different event, in different sport, it'll be another country's best against the American. So it seemed like we were competitive in most things. And I don't think a lot of countries could say that. China had certain things they weren't competitive in. You know, they
Hmm.
were competitive in gymnastics and ping pong and badminton and a bunch of things, but they weren't doing, you didn't hear Chinese track people, Chinese
Yeah,
swimmers, you know, there were countries that competed in everything, and then there were countries that excelled dramatically in a few things.
yeah,
And I think they were closer to
that's
the
true.
latter.
You know, what was a cool moment is to watch Scotty Scheffler when he got that gold medal.
Yeah.
This the guy has been the number one golfer for 2 years and has won every major. He's been dominating the sport for a couple of years now, Scotty Scheffler,
Yeah.
um, and yet you could see how much winning a gold medal for his country meant to him when he was sitting
Yep.
there crying, looking at his wife. And that's such a cool moment, man. The Olympics just means something else. It has nothing to do with money. It's all having to do with legacy. It's all having to do with your country. He was just feeling tremendous pride at that moment.
Yeah. I think it meant a lot to him. He did it for all the right reasons. I think he feels kind of like he's starting to turn a corner on how much more can I add to my legacy.
Hmm.
And I think this one was personal. Like golf is hard, you know. You don't always hit your best rounds to get it, and
And also, there's so many good golfers in the world now.
so many good golfers.
You know.
It's an easy sport to just start playing by yourself and to start to get better at. And if you have a special gift for it, you know, like Tiger clearly had that when he was little. Um, People will stumble upon a gift they have without knowing it, and then just start swinging a club and be good at it and be like, whoa, okay. Or the discus lady, you know, or the bike rider who had no clue. She just started riding for fun. That you can have a bunch of people accidentally find they have that gift, and they go into the huge mix of people who are good at golf all over the world. It's really hard to dominate that sport. That's why when Tiger Woods dominated for those years, it was so special because it it hadn't been done very often. You know,
Hmm.
usually you'll have one major won by this guy, one major won
Hmm.
by that girl, you know, and you just keep rotating who's on top for that week or month. But
Hmm.
you know, winning back to back to back things and winning when you're supposed to is tough. And everyone thought he probably is going to win or could win, but golf is one of those things where it's just kind of always wide open,
It's
you know.
true. It's true. Well, let's take a look at some of the surprise winners. We had Jennifer Valente in the biking event, which was really a cool thing. We talked about that a little
Loved it.
bit earlier.
Yeah.
Cole Hocker, that might have been one of the coolest moments in the whole Olympics. This is a guy running the 1,500 meters, essentially staying within the lead pack the whole time, but nobody gave him really a chance. He was sitting in about fifth or sixth the whole race. And then you could tell the last couple of 100 meters, he was trying to find a little lane on the inside, and they kept blocking him, not letting him through. The
Hmm.
Kenyans and those kind of guys. And then all of a sudden, with about 200 meters left, he finds this little tiny opening and he takes it. And again, I don't know where he found the kick to finish that race, but ends up winning it by about 2 meters. So it was really
Yeah.
what a cool moment for Cole Hocker.
Yeah.
Olivia Reed. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I watched it. He was smaller than the other guys, and he kind of slipped through. It seemed like the Kenyan guys, they were all taller and had longer strides. It just felt like he had a little bit of energy there at the end, and he just punched to the inside lane. And I don't think anybody really saw him until a split second where it was too late, where he took off. Um, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it really
And to
was.
watch his family reaction, and it was really cool. I love watching the family reactions.
I love it. And these surprise events are almost better than the ones where they're expected. It's so cool to
Almost.
see these. Olivia Reeves gets the weightlifting title, which was surprising. U.S. women have not won that in 4 Olympics,
Mhm.
so that was really cool to watch. Tara Davis Woodall wins the women's long jump, and she was ranked
Yeah.
10th in the world. She on her final jump, she was in sixth place going into the final jump, and she ends up jumping 3.5 feet beyond where she had ever jumped before.
Wow. That's far.
So you talk about like getting the jump of your life at the right
Yeah.
time in the Olympics to win the gold.
That's when
I
you're
don't
a
know.
gamer, when you're doing your best thing when the highest pressure is on.
That's right.
That's a
That's right.
gamer.
Grant Holloway won the same event. So it was really cool
Mhm.
to see we got both events, but on both sides of the men's and women's side. You had Amit Elor as the wrestling champion
I watched that
at,
one.
at 68 kilogram. That was really cool to watch that
That was so
because
cool. She was just so tough.
she was.
She was just so strong and
She was in the big division. Then down on the bottom right there, Sarah Hillebrandt won at the small division.
mhm.
So you had essentially two NCAA champion wrestlers both come through with golds. It
Yeah.
was really cool to see. Then you had Valerie Allman, who's your girl, who's the one who wanted to
Mhm.
go to spaghetti night.
Spaghetti night. Although look at those abs. It doesn't look like she went to too much spaghetti night. Jeez.
Yeah, but she somehow comes through and wins the discus, which is a premier athletic and Olympic event.
Yeah.
You had Bobby Fink, who nobody had ever heard of before this Olympics. You and I talked about in the preview show that there was going to be some folks that come out of nowhere. He
Mhm.
was definitely one of them. Wasn't even considered really a force in the 1500, but pulls that race out against the Australians. And then Caroline Marks wins women's surfing. She's a Hawaiian, and she was able to take that event in Tahiti, which is where they held that event.
Yep.
Any of these surprise winners just really jump out at you?
I mean, just Amit Elor, I just really enjoyed that one. Um, Obviously, the Valerie Allman discus is cool. Bobby Fink, I remember a lot of the champion U.S. women were rooting for that really hard while it was going. So that was cool to watch. He had a lot of support. I'm just proud of all of them gutting down. Obviously, when you're not favored and you're a surprise winner, that means that you had to gut it out and go when even people around you weren't believing in you to get the gold, maybe, and you had to summon up something inside yourself that believed more than the people around you did.
I tell you,
You know,
my favorite on this page was the biking one, Jennifer Valente. That's the one up and down the Champs Elysees. That was just
yeah,
so cool.
yeah,
And then I'd say my second would be Cole Hawker. That was just what a boss move at the end
that
there to
was
win that
cool.
race.
Yeah,
And then I'd say third is probably Amit Elor. I think just the emotion she had after that, and the fact that she wasn't expected to win,
hmm,
it just felt really cool. And then probably Valerie Allman too was what a great moment.
yeah, all of them. They exceeded their wildest expectations. You know.
No doubt about it. So some of the biggest international stars coming out of this Olympics, I think it starts with guy there on the top left with Michael Phelps, Marchand from France, and he goes to Arizona State University. He has the same college coach as Michael Phelps. He and Phelps have become friends. Phelps is kind of like a mentor to him, as he says. He's kind of like the French Michael Phelps, winning 5 gold medals in this Olympics.
Hmm.
So he was clearly, I think, the biggest international star coming out of this Olympics, and is now the most marketable person in France. Got to hold the torch on the way out in the closing ceremonies. Um, Down on the bottom left is Titmus, who everyone knew coming in was one of the best swimmers in the world for Australia. Won a bunch of medals in this race. As you said, she did lose one race to Katie Ledecky, but overall was pretty dominant in most of her
Very.
races.
She was very dominant. She reminded me of a male Australian swimmer like 2 Olympics ago, I think it was. I can't remember his name, but he had a nickname like the Albatross or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, that Australian guy was like her, just blowing people away to get the gold.
That's right. That's right. Her male counterparts there on the bottom as well from Australia won 2 gold medals, and his name was Wentz. His name was Wentz.
Wentz, okay.
Um, and then up on the top is Wemby from France, who's
Mhm,
their big center in the NBA. And even though they got the silver to the U.S., obviously comes out of this as a humongous international star.
mhm.
The silver medalist in gymnastics was the only one who wasn't on the podium that wasn't American, from Brazil. Andrade apparently has become a huge international superstar in her home country.
Mhm.
Um, you have the breaking champion there on the top from Japan. She became a huge superstar in Japan, apparently, winning the breaking final. And then right below her, the main Japanese man who absolutely crushed in men's gymnastics this year. got the gold and a gold in a bunch of individual events. So that was a huge thing. And then, of course, down on the very bottom there, you have Djokovic. So down on the bottom there, you got Djokovic,
Oh,
who
that's
won.
Djokovic?
Yeah, who won his first gold medal.
Mm.
And he had a very similar reaction to Scotty Scheffler because, Djokovic has won everything in the world of tennis. The one thing
Yeah.
he had not won is a gold medal, and this meant so much to him. So it's kind of capped off his career.
It didn't
So
look like him to me in that picture, but I do believe you. Now that you say it, I see it.
yep, yeah, he won the
Yeah, he
gold
did
medal.
great.
Yep. Then you have the French sevens captain. Of course, France won the men's sevens, and it was a huge deal. It's something that a lot of people didn't think that they could do because Australia and New Zealand were so dominant. But they
Fiji,
were able to
Fiji,
pull this off. Yep.
Fiji was
Uh,
dominant.
and Fiji. Yeah, and Fiji. Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
Fiji was the better team, but I think France was willed to win by its home crowd. I think they
And
just
also,
played out of their minds, and they were able to take away some of those breakaways from Fiji. And Fiji did the same thing in every team they spanked in every round. They let the other team score first, and then they'd score 38 straight points. And it was just impossible to stop. And France found a way to stop that from happening.
no, that's right. This guy's name is Lamond. He's the captain of that team, and they say he's the heartbeat. He's one of the shortest guys on the team, but he's just a beast rugby player. He's just when you watch him play, he's just that prototypical, rugby style of play,
Sevens.
rugby body. Yeah, exactly.
When you have
And then now,
sevens, you have to have athletes out there. They're not all huge bodies. That most of them aren't. They're good tacklers. They're like free safeties. They
but he's
They
high,
need to be
he's
able to
high
run the
energy.
ball, tackle.
He's high energy, and he was the captain of that team, and he just kind of drove
Mhm.
them to
Yeah,
greatness.
yeah.
Below him was Suni Lee, who's the big star coming out of China. She won the women's tennis tournament and is really a rising star on the tennis side.
Mhm.
Somebody to watch for sure, Suni Lee. So, in terms of controversies from Paris, there were a lot of them. We'll talk about some of these briefly here. First one, there were some athletes arrested in this Olympics and sent home.
Mhm.
So that was kind of an interesting scenario. And
Mhm.
also some that got kicked out of the Olympic Village for different behavior problems. I think some of these can be expected. Athletes being arrested or
Yeah.
kicked out of the Olympic Village. There's so many athletes there. There was one also that had a rumored porn deal.
Yeah.
This is a
The pole
20-year-old.
vaulter.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently he was doing something with OnlyFans and with something else, and TMZ busted him. And so he ended up getting sent home too. So you had different behavior issues, you had drinking issues, you had porn issues. But the first big one that really hit the screen was the boxing issues.
Mhm.
Khalif and the other boxer, both of which everyone believed, and we don't have proof, but everyone believed were transgender and were males boxing in the female competition.
There was a lot of conflicting information that came out. I don't know what's true, so I don't really wanna comment on that stuff, but, it appeared early on that 2 males who transitioned to female were winning that, and then there's a lot of conflicting, science and evidence, and I don't know what happened there, so I don't know what to say about that.
Well, you had the one Italian boxer woman who quit after 20 seconds because Khalif hit her so hard.
Yeah,
She said she couldn't go on, which was really I don't think I've ever seen a moment like that before. I watched the replay.
yeah, I
Essentially
agree.
dropped out because Khalif hit her too hard. It doesn't prove that Khalif's a man, but,
Mm-mm.
certainly Khalif had a lot of man-like qualities when you look at him, her.
Yeah, there
But,
were a lot of things
but there's a
saying
lot
that.
of conflicting things that said she actually was born a woman, so I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm not sure.
she was born a woman, but she had excessively high testosterone. What do you do with that? I don't know. It gets confusing. Um, you just leave it up to the professionals, and you hope that everyone's operating honestly, and that the IOC gets to figure out some of the rules that are associated with this.
And
Um,
and that's the scandal right below that, which is, how do we test for gender qualification? We gotta figure this out before
There are
2028.
arguments. I mean, some have to do with the level of testosterone. The other has to do with looking at the chromosomes. So to me, it makes sense to look at chromosomes, but there's other factors you have to factor in. Like you can't have a certain level of testosterone, high level, or you could technically qualify out, like fail. Like she failed, Khalif failed multiple gender tests because of the level of her testosterone, I guess. So I don't know.
So here,
I'm not
so
an
here's the
expert in this
question.
area, so I really don't like to
So
get
here's the
too deep
question.
into the weeds, but somebody needs to look at it for sure.
Here's the question. Should the IOC eliminate this issue by creating a test on XY chromosome? If you have XY chromosome, you can't play in women's sports. Should they do
Apparently,
that? Just make it clean.
apparently Khalif would have passed that one.
And then that's fine. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
At least you have a standard that you can go to.
I
XY,
think
XY.
they do. The problem is there's like the world boxing that does it one way, and then the IOC does it a different way, and this and that. That's the problem, is that there's some discrepancies. And when you have somebody who would pass it one way and fail it another, that's when we have this issue right here. So
Well,
I don't know.
boxing is one of the original events from the original Greek games back thousands of years ago. Okay. And now they've eliminated boxing from the 2028 Olympics. And my question to you is that because of this problem
No,
here?
no, I think it
Or
was almost gone. It was almost gone anyway because it's a violent sport. And I think world communities are trying to move away from head injury type sports, and I don't know. I think
and yet UFC is more popular than ever. So
yeah, yeah, but it's not in the Olympics. You know, it's not gonna
I
be
don't
in the
think they should
Olympics.
move away from boxing. I think anything that was in the original Olympics thousands of years ago in Greece should be part of the Olympics. That's just my
I
personal
agree with you, except for when you say anything, because some of the events in the original Olympics were weird. There were art events.
No,
There
I'm not
were
talking
there
about that.
No,
Yeah.
I know, but what I'm saying is I think we should try to preserve as much of the original as possible without bringing back anything that didn't fit. Like the art events that used to be in the dancing. There were Olympic events that were strange that don't match. This needs to be an athletic set of events, and so I totally agree. Boxing should be preserved and kept in. Do you have to eliminate some to add? Probably. I'd rather have boxing than flag football.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well, the second most scandalous thing that came out of the Olympics is the scandalous Last Supper controversy. Before the games even started, Olympic organizers were already dealing with the controversy. At the end of the 4-hour opening ceremony spectacle, a cadre of drag queens and models walked a red carpet runway along Passerelle de Billy Bridge, which was across the Seine. One of those stars was none other than RuPaul's Drag Race star Nikki Doll. The Queen strutted the bridge alongside Drag Race France favorites Paloma and Piche. Queens were joined by dozens of other models and performers in a rendition of what many online thought resembled Leonardo da Vinci's famed painting, The Last Supper, and was essentially debasing that Last Supper. And many Christians believe this, whether it truly was that or not, or whether it was what they're explaining it to be, which was a
it was a Greek dinner that had to do with the Olympics.
yeah, and like a Greek celebration of some kind. So
Yeah.
whether it was the Last Supper or not, you have billions of Christians that are offended. And is this what you really want going into Olympics with your opening ceremony? Is my question.
I mean, I think it was a mistake because it looked like an insult to Christianity. If it was a supper that was not straight out of the Bible, but more the Greek history of the Olympics, it should have been more stated clearly.
No,
I
but
just think
Rob,
it was
there
an
was
it
a
was
way.
it was an unnecessary self-inflicted wound.
Even if it was the Greek celebration version of it, if you had seen this version that they did, even that was offensive because you're trying to appeal to a broad set of people who are watching this with their kids at home. And this was not a
So
kid-friendly program. Let's just put it that way.
so I tend to agree with you, except for if it's not meant to offend Christians, then the fact that they're offended doesn't need to be dealt with very much. They need to get over it.
I should be
But
able
if
to sit
but
there
if
with
it's
my
pur
10-year-old
but it's
kids and watch.
if it's purposefully aimed to be inclusive, but it's a purposeful insult to Christianity, and then you have to accept it because we're being inclusive, that's not okay. So I think one thing that's the battle of this transgender stuff is inclusivity versus we're going to insult people who don't accept us. Those two things don't have to go together. And so right now, I'm not sure which one's which.
Well, again, I should be able to sit there with my 10-year-old kids or your 8-year-old boys and be able to watch the entire 4 hours without having to turn it off. And if I had been with your boys watching this program and I watched it, I would have turned off the program. So it was that. And so if that's what the Olympics wants is for only a small niche people to be able to watch it and enjoy it, then that's fine. But I always thought the Olympics were for everybody, and the opening ceremony should be generally family friendly, so everyone can watch it. And I have to think Los Angeles was watching this and thinking to themselves, okay, when we do this same ceremony 4 years from now, we've got to make it inclusive for everyone.
Yes,
Everyone should be able to watch this.
without making it an insult to anyone. That's
That's
the
right.
key.
So next one is soccer snooping. For many years, Canada's been fraudulently coasting on their international nice guy reputation. But after their shocking behavior at the 2024 Olympics, the friendship between New Zealand and its Commonwealth sister may never be the same. Canadian football team or soccer team was deducted 6 points and fined 313,000. Three of its head coaches were sent home in disgrace after spying on the New Zealand football team's tactics by flying a drone over their training sessions. So what are your thoughts here?
Overreaction. I think you can only get limited amount of information from a drone filming a soccer practice that you can't get from film on I think they were acting like it was the reason why someone was going to get a gold medal or not, and I just
No,
don't
I
think it was.
agree. I agree. But at the same time,
It was overreaction.
you also can't condone this kind of behavior. You can't have people flying
Yeah,
drones over.
I think you take the 1 to 3 people involved, you send them home, and that should be the end of it. It should be just like, don't do this again. The next time will be a larger penalty, and you just. I think it was an overreaction, but at the same time, I want the rules enforced. So I have no
Yeah,
problem with them sending those coaches home.
right. Absolutely agree.
But I don't
Yeah, I
think it
mean,
should have been a black cloud following the Canadian team the whole Olympics either. Should have just been
yeah,
like, all right, they got dealt with.
yep. And New Zealand, I mean, obviously they had every right to be upset, right? So it's
Yeah,
not like
but
I'm picking on
get
them.
over it and go play.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not going to
So
learn
next
that
one,
much by watching someone's practice. You might get a little sniff of 1 or 2 set pieces that they might use on you, but at the same time, I just don't think it's going to swing a game, you know?
so next one is there's something in the water. Swimming got off to a turbulent start at the Olympics. First, there were many complaints about the pool being too shallow, allegedly slowing swimmers down, and one of the reasons why there weren't more records shattered in the first week. And then there was the main big one was the big concerns about water quality in the Seine after they had spent $1.5 billion cleaning it up, and the quality of fecal matter contained therein, with several triathletes, including New Zealand silver medalist Hayden Wild, subsequently falling ill from strange diseases. So, any thoughts about these two water scandals?
Uh, Wait, it's 2 water scandals or 1?
Yeah, you had the pool
Then
being too shallow in the Olympic
Oh, right, right,
arena,
right.
which was slowing what swimmers down, they claim. And then,
I don't know anything about that one. I do remember hearing it at the time. The Sen one was a self-inflicted wound. Um, the pool being too shallow is too if it was designed that way poorly. But overall, I think the facilities were amazing. I think the dumbest thing they did was try to use the Sen. Everyone knew back when we lived there in the mid '80s that it was filthy, and it's gotten worse. and they put 1.5 billion or whatever it was to clean it up. And they have the mayor of Paris swimming in it right before the Olympic Games started, and it was clean for 3 days or whatever. And then it rained really hard, and all the sewage from Paris washed in and recontaminated it. I think that was foreseeable. I think that was an enormous mistake by one person or a committee that nobody had the courage to stand up to. And that was just one of the black eyes of this Olympics. But overall, I think their facilities were amazing. Their venues were
No doubt
amazing.
about it.
They
No
did a
doubt about
good
it.
job.
I will say you're right. This sin was a complete self-inflicted wound. They not only should have been able to see this coming, but to
Yeah.
try to change a water body that flows every day downstream, to try to change something like it doesn't matter how much money you put into it. It's a natural body of water that's going to continually change every single day. And
Yeah.
to think that they could control the quality of that water, it didn't make any sense.
And
In the
how
very
angry
beginning.
are you if you're a Parisian and they use 1.5 billion of your tax dollars to do something that is like throwing a bucket of water into the ocean? Like, it's just
It
complete
just didn't
waste
make
of money.
And also just a black eye on the Olympics, which was a great Olympics, but a black eye because they could have avoided this by just having them swim in a lake or something, you know?
Yeah,
There's many bodies
yeah,
of water all over France.
sure.
So this was a self-inflicted wound. In terms of the shallowness of the pool, it's 3 feet shallower than 4 years ago.
Yeah.
According to the ones who really know and have been swimming their whole lives, that makes a difference in
Mm-hmm.
terms of
It
speed.
probably does.
I
Yep.
I don't know. I'm not a swimming expert. I don't know if it makes a difference or not. I do know that there were a number of Olympic and world records broken in this Olympics, so it's not like it completely slowed it down that much. But
No.
did it
And
have a
not only
slight
that,
effect? Maybe. I mean, you,
but you are not necessarily competing against a world record. You're competing against this guy over here and this lady over here.
yeah.
Um, you need to jump in that pool and beat her or beat
But
him.
yeah, that's
And
right.
I think they're all swimming in the same pool, and I don't think it is an advantage for one over another or anything like that. So just that one's not as dumb to me as, I mean, yeah, it's avoidable. You know, going in what the depth of the pool is, but at the same time, at least it's not a massive strategic blunder thinking you can control the cleanliness of the Seine.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think that for us to discount what the swimmers are saying, that it did slow them down, it's hard for us to do that. We're not experts.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
They're the ones who've been swimming for 20 something years, every single day, 3 times a day, 5 in the morning.
For me,
They
I'll
know
believe
they
them,
yeah. I mean,
but they'll need to explain to me how that's going to affect one swimmer worse than another.
I don't think they did. They're saying that overall
So,
it slowed everybody down, is what they're
so
saying.
the gold medalist should have been the gold medalist in any pool
True.
on that day swimming that hard.
I think they're only
So
worrying about Olympic
world record.
records. That's what they're trying to
Okay,
yeah.
fine.
So fencing, fixing fallout. So there was a lot of complaining by most of the teams in this Olympics, even the ones that won medals, that it seemed like the scoring by the refs in the fencing was very inconsistent. And there's lots of ways that could actually happen. The scoring is very difficult. Sometimes it's very subjective. They do have VAR ability to look at the fencing scoring, but apparently, you know, reffing this event is very difficult.
Yeah,
So they're trying to figure out, is there some way to fix this by next Olympics so that you don't have so much controversy and so many complaints?
I think Occam's razor is the concept where you talk about um, look to the simplest explanation. It's usually right. In this case, uneven reffing is probably just that, not some grand conspiracy. A lot of times we'll tag something much harder than the reality to something when it was really just incompetence or unclear rules. Maybe they need to look at the rules and the refs enforcing those rules,
Hmm.
and then enforcing what constitutes a point and what doesn't. And they just need to look at the whole system and not assume there's something going on that's um, conspiratorial or in any way scandalous. Instead, look at, was there a lack of clarity? Was there too much leeway in what a point constitutes, and just fix that first before you go jumping in the whole.
Fix that first, but then you do need to always look every Olympics at whether, in the old days, the American team used to complain the Russian judges would
Yeah.
always score them low. Or
Yeah, 9.9,
so,
9.9,
yeah,
10,
yeah,
9.9, and then the Romanian judge 7. Like,
right.
that was
So,
ridiculous, but
and
that
so
needed to be fixed.
I would
That
think
was
in
that was
fencing,
political.
the fact that you have the buzzer that goes off when it hits your chest, and the fact that you have VAR, I would think this would be a sport you could fix pretty easily by
Exactly.
just leaning on the technology.
Technology, and also maybe look at, were there confusing elements that could be a point? Let's remove those. Let's clarify those. Let's look at those
Mhm.
harder and make it more clear on how you can defend from being
Mhm.
scored on,
Yeah.
or attacking and getting a point. Like, making it
Technology
more clear.
technology cannot solve everything, but this is one sport I just feel like it should be able to take most of the controversy out.
I
You
think
either hit the guy's chest
there
first or you don't.
there are more elements to this, I think, in terms of, I don't think there was controversies about scoring points. I think they were having refs saying your foot went out of bounds, or
Right.
your you didn't engage at the right time, or whatever. I bet you they had arguments about subjective things, not objective, like
Mhm.
whether the foil touched my chest or not. I think that's not what the arguments were about. I think it was about, okay, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a point deduction because
You stepped on the line or
you
yeah,
didn't
that
put
kind
the
of thing.
foil in front of your face when you're supposed to. And you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I think that's what the
yeah,
arguments were, was there was
right.
subjective elements to it. They just need
Yeah.
to look at the subjective elements and get that fixed for next
Well,
time.
no, but it
I
also
don't
was
think we're
scoring
dealing with a big
because
scandal here.
it also was scoring because in the semifinals and finals both, there were a number of times where the foil touches at the same time, and that's where you have to go to VAR.
Yeah,
When
that's
it
hard.
touches exactly
I
that, that's
fenced a
really
little, and that happens a lot.
yeah, it's
uh,
tough.
we didn't have VAR back in the 80s, so we
Exactly.
were
So some other scandals, one of the big ones was the bed bug panic, and I noticed that it was talked about a lot the first 2 days of Olympics, but then not discussed after that. They kinda wanted to bury it. But apparently there was a lot of scandal around bed bugs on top of the scandal below that, which is the cardboard beds and the scrub daddy mattresses, which Olympians were complaining about both of these issues. And in a lot of cases, the ones that could afford it ended up leaving the village and going to hotels.
Mhm.
Any thoughts about this bed bug and cardboard beds issues?
It seemed like a strange one to me to have cardboard beds for the world's best athletes. I think this is an example, though, of being easy to nitpick. I think when you're in the Olympic Village and you have the stress of having to compete, you're going to have cranky people, and it's going to make it to their media. So if you're from Romania, or you're a Bulgarian weightlifter and you're a big dude and you got to sleep on this cardboard box and you're cranky and maybe you just lost, you know? I think there's
Mhm,
every Olympics is going to have these complaints.
mhm.
But it did strike me as strange that they put them all on not real beds.
Doesn't
Save
seem
the
to be a very
planet?
good bed to sleep on if you think about it.
Was this some statement about saving the planet, global warming? Like, I didn't understand why they put them on beds that weren't relatively normal beds. Like, cardboard beds, is this so that you could say that we're going to recycle these, and this is a
Mhm,
statement for saving the environment? Is this an environmental play? Or is this, we thought design wise this is better? To me, this was like paper straws wrapped in plastic. It didn't make any sense. Um, if it's environmental stuff, but
right.
get the athletes happy, get them comfortable. I didn't understand. There was a lot of arguments and squabbling about their food.
And
Apparently,
the
there was
bed
very little meat in all the dining halls, and
mhm.
they were saying, we
Sure.
want you to eat vegetables. And some of these high performing athletes are like, that's not what my diet is. Like, you guys didn't take into account anything. So they're having to get food from outside. It just didn't, I don't know. I think there's gonna be some of this complaining at the LA Olympics. You're going to hear some squabbles about
But how do you think Paris, that prepared for this for 8 years, were able to make some of these unforced errors? I just don't understand.
what I'm saying is there's going to be similar arguments in LA about how could LA have allowed this to happen, blah, 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 blah. So,
Rob, they built these villages with the intent that after the Olympics they were going to turn them into apartments for young people in Paris. So they were thinking forward. That was good.
yeah.
And so these buildings are brand spanking new. And you're telling me you can't put a normal bed in there in what's going to be
No,
eventually
that's what I'm
apartments for
saying,
young
though.
people?
To me, I think somebody said, "Hey, this would be great. We can do cardboard beds, and we'll be able to say that there's." I'm assuming that it's environmental friendliness. I don't have a clue why they did that. To me, it was a poor choice because you're going to have cranky athletes. So the same thing should go into LA planning. You're going to have cranky athletes in a small environment. Don't feed into things they can complain about. Get them
Hmm.
comfortable, get them happy. Don't have limited AC to save the planet. Get them comfortable. And you're still going to have complaining about, I don't like the food or I don't like the water, but I wouldn't have any major changes to what normalcy there is in order
Mhm.
to like make some kind of statement or something.
In
Because
terms
then
of
you're
bed
just
bugs,
fighting
in terms
uphill.
of bed bugs, they apparently had bed bug problems since the beginning of COVID in Paris every single year. And so this is also a very foreseeable, unforced error for them. You would think that they would at least come and treated the Olympic Village very heavily before everybody arrived, so you didn't have a bed bug issue. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know much about bed bugs. How do they operate? How do you get rid of them? Um, I think once they were discovered, they probably couldn't change out everyone's mattresses. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
And then the next one up there on the top was Van de Velde, who was a Dutch beach volleyball player, was probably the most hated athlete at the Olympics. He was convicted of and served time for raping a 12-year-old British girl in
Mhm.
2016. He spent 2 years in jail. He was roundly booed every time he touched the ball in every single match. Ended up leaving the Olympics with no medals. Ended up getting knocked out. But
Mhm.
a lot of people were reporting they had never seen an athlete be so hated as this guy. He was just roundly hated and criticized. He was even being booed by his own Dutch fans. So, pretty interesting that they would allow a convicted sex offender into the Olympics at all. I wonder if that should have been looked at. I don't know.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the case. I remember there was a big scandal around this guy. They showed him a lot, and there was a lot of allegations that were pretty horrifying. Um, I didn't dive too deep into this one, but I think the most of the world is pretty hard on pedophiles. I think America is becoming more enlightened on this subject in a way that's more accepting of pedophiles on some levels. Um,
You would think that an Olympics committee that can get rid of an entire country, Russia, for 2 Olympics in a row for doping, could also invalidate this kind of guy from coming into the Olympics. I don't know. It's just my personal opinion. I don't think he should
yeah,
have been allowed to compete.
I think this is the kind of thing where they need to look at what are the laws here, what are the rules. Um, I don't know.
At the same time, he's going to say, "I served my time." I don't know. It's
Yeah,
just.
like what? He's supposed to walk around for the rest of his life, not being able to do anything. I mean, I
I
don't know.
guess. I guess
It's a
if you let
really
him
tough
compete,
subject.
he got the treatment from the crowd he's going to get. I mean, he's got to expect that, right? He's going to get
Yeah.
booed every time he touches the
Yeah,
ball.
there's a cost for all mistakes in life, and whether he made one mistake in life that he got caught for and he really damaged a young person, he's gonna pay for that the rest of his life. If I'm him, I just go underground and I hide, um,
So next
and
item is
I try and rebuild myself.
So next item is Jordan Child's medal controversy. After she won the bronze medal in the individual floor exercise, the Romanian Gymnastics Federation put in a complaint because their two gymnasts had come in fourth and fifth place. They filed an appeal, essentially arguing that the inquiry that Child's coach had submitted at the competition that led to the athlete's score to be raised by .01 would not have been granted because it was submitted 4 seconds past the 1-minute deadline. And they put this challenge in. It actually was initially granted, and they initially took Jordan Child's bronze away, and then decided afterwards, about 3 days later, after all the controversy, to allow Childs and the lady who came in fourth to both get a bronze medal. So essentially consider it like a tie. What are your thoughts, or did they handle this well?
I think it was a tough decision. I think they handled it pretty decently. I don't know exactly where I come down on it, but I think when they're trying to look for a good solution, um, I'm not positive they reached one, but I think they attempted to with, in earnest. So I'm okay with it.
I think it was the right solution. 4 seconds past a 1-minute deadline. You're talking about, changing someone's life completely, effectively giving them both a bronze. I think was the right way to do it. Right way
Yeah,
to handle that.
probably.
Next one we had was the Brazilian swimmer Ana Karina Veria was sent home after, according to the Olympic Committee for Brazil, she committed 2 acts of indiscipline. The first one being she left the Olympic Village with her boyfriend without permission. And then she was acting in a disrespectful and aggressive manner. So she ended up getting sent home and was not put on the 4x100 freestyle relay. So,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about this one?
I think what was she 21 or something? Young.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you made a young mistake, paid a price, move on. You know.
Went with her boyfriend out. Probably wanted to check
Yeah.
out Paris.
She made bad youthful decisions and wasn't grown up when facing the consequences. And
She went against her coach's wishes, and I think that you should expect, if you're going to go against your coach's wishes, you might not be put on the swim team the next day,
yeah,
even if it is the Olympics, right?
yeah, I don't think there's a lot there.
Yeah, it's kind of an internal issue for Brazil anyway.
Yeah. Am I
Let's
saying
talk.
they handled it perfectly? I don't know. Probably not. But
Yeah,
am I
probably not.
surprised by it, or do I think there's some glaring wrongness to this? Like she got wronged? Now, if you're going to break rules and they're clear for everybody, and you're the
Yeah,
only one breaking them, and you're told not to, and then you come back and you're not apologetic,
right.
then you're not swimming for our country. I mean,
That's right.
I don't know.
Let's look at the handover to LA 2028. It was pretty epic. It started with that incredible stunt of Tom Cruise there on the top right, where he essentially went via wire down into the stadium, down to the very bottom, and then met up with the LA mayor and Simone Biles, and went and grabbed the Olympic flag, and then hops on a motorcycle in the stadium and rides the motorcycle out of the stadium in Paris, rides it all through the streets of Paris, and then rides it up onto a C-130 airplane with the Olympic flag. And then the next scene is him flying, and then the scene after that is him riding the motorcycle back down the C-130 in Los Angeles, and then riding it all the way to the scene you see on the bottom right there, where you had a welcome committee and big party going on for LA 28. And he took that flag and took it all the way through the crowd and handed it to Snoop Dogg, and they had a big celebration. So that was the epic kind of handover to LA 2028. See some really cool signs there. The one in the middle with Hollywood with the Olympic sign attached to it, and you had Tom Cruise there at the very bottom as part of that same video. And then you have the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum will be the host of this Olympics, like it was in 1932 and in 1984, 2 other times. And then you have the epic new logo there on the bottom left. You see it with LA 28 and the 4 rings, and you see the Mamba symbol there, which is supposed to be a tribute to Kobe Bryant, who was the great Los Angeles Laker. Any thoughts about this epic handover to LA?
I like it. I mean, I think if there's one thing LA does well, it's Hollywood movies and action and all that. Um, I think if you're going to lean into your strengths, and I think entertainment is where they excel. So make things really entertaining. It kind of reminds me of when we went to Las Vegas and we saw the hockey team,
Mm-hmm. The
and
Knights.
going
Mm-hmm.
to the Knights, the Golden Knights game was an experience like you would see in an LA, I mean in a Las Vegas show. Lean into what you are and just sort of embrace it, and
Mhm.
Make it to the umpteenth level. Try and be respectful of everybody's cultures coming in, but be LA. Be the best of what your city has to offer. And
Completely agree. You
I just
notice there,
entertain.
you notice in there in the celebration picture on the bottom right, you see the 5 colors of the Olympic rings all trailing by the airplanes that went over. That's a pretty cool thing that they had the 4 colors of the Olympic rings.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts about the new logo doing a tribute to the great Kobe Bryant, the Mamba mentality?
it's okay. I mean, I don't feel strongly about it. It's really sad what happened to him. I think he's a bit of, he's an icon for the city, so um
But I think
it's
the idea is also to translate that same Mamba mentality over to the U.S. Olympic team so that they succeed, have a big
I think
Olympics.
that's a stretch to go from a logo to this is going to translate into more gold medals or higher performances, but if they want the symbolism of the city to be, we're going to have this incredible handoff, LA style. We're going to have this party with all these high celebrity concert live shows leading up to the excitement level. We're going to have our logo involve an iconic person. I'm okay with all this. You know,
And
it's fun.
is there any question that Tom Cruise is the biggest actor in the world right now?
No question.
And
No question.
secondly, has there ever been an actor who takes more risks than this guy? I mean, it's pretty astounding.
Jackie Chan.
Yeah, maybe
But
Jackie Chan.
no, I mean, you know, it goes back to that Matt Damon telling the story about how he went to dinner with Tom Cruise. And Matt Damon said, so tell me about this Mission Impossible stunt that you did where you ran out of the building and ran up the side of the glass wall or whatever. And he said, I've been planning that for 10 years or something. And he said, tell me about it. He said, I could never do that. And so Tom Cruise said, okay. So I get this safety guy and I tell him what I want to do. And the safety guy says, pauses and says, you can't do that. You're too dangerous. It's too dangerous for you to do.
Mhm.
And so, and then I said, so later I got this new safety guy. You know what I mean? And he
Yeah.
keeps going. That's how Tom
Sure.
Cruise's mindset is. You're not gonna stop me from doing it. You just need to be there to try and make it as safe as possible for me. So,
Rob, he's 63 years old. It's
I
not
know.
like he's not 30. You know what I mean?
He sees his talent as not so much an actor, but as an entertainer. And I think he needs to be willing to go to extremes in order to bring that entertainment because he's not a singer, he's not a dancer. He thinks his contribution is spectacular stunts that look real. And the biggest way you can make it look real is to show my face while I'm doing it. He's not the
Right.
only actor to do that. Patrick Swayze used to skydive in Point Break scenes, and there's so many examples of people doing their own real stunts. But
But don't you think other actors respect him for doing it, his own stunts?
yeah, I mean, just like I was saying with the Matt Damon thing, Matt Damon saying I could never do that, and he was Jason Bourne, considered one of the biggest stretch of action
Yeah.
movies, you know, iconic. Um, yeah, I think Tom Cruise is psychopathic about uh, making these stunts amazing, and you got to see my face while it's happening. So I'm doing them. I'm going to be flying the jets in Top Gun. I'm going to be skydiving out of whatever. I'm going to be riding motorcycles onto C-130s. I'm going to be going
I'm
down.
gonna be jumping my motorcycle over crevices,
Yeah,
and
I'm
scaling
riding my
down big buildings.
motorcycle and jumping off and free falling. I'm gonna be free rappelling down the Stade de France. You know, this is what he
That's funny.
thinks
That's
his
funny. So
contribution is.
that's funny. So I got a new safety guy.
So I got a new safety guy,
Yeah.
and I'm
All
telling
right.
him what I want to do.
So this is the third time Los Angeles is hosting the Olympics. On the left, there are 4 pictures from the 1932 games, which happened, and you can see the old Coliseum, which has been uplifted a couple of times over the years. But going to be cool that we're holding the games again in the same place, 1932. And then on the right are 5 pictures from the 1984 games, which also were used in the Coliseum as the centerpiece. There, you see Carl Lewis became the multiple gold medalist in that Olympics. And you see a picture of Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan, who were apparently the main attraction at the opening ceremonies there. And of course, Mary Lou Retton as well.
Yep.
So any thoughts?
Yeah.
about
Yeah. So you know what's
Washington?
funny? I saw a stack of all the times that were run in one of the events, the 200 or one of the events Carl Lewis used to run, and they showed that the guy who came in last was a Jamaican, even though I think a Jamaican might have even won it also. But the guy who came in last scored higher than Carl Lewis, who won the gold in that event
Isn't
back
that funny?
in '84. Yeah,
So essentially, you're saying Carl Lewis would come in last every time
he
now
would
if
he
it's
would have come
his
in
time.
last in every event
Yeah.
now.
Imagine
Now,
how far Noah Lyles would be ahead of him in the 100.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are some things they used to run on tracks that were not built for the speed. They didn't
Mhm.
have the same studs. There are things that if you gave them to Carl Lewis,
Right.
he would have run faster. So,
There's no doubt.
but still, it's funny to think about. His time would have come in last.
That's right. So let's talk about some of the new events at LA Olympics 2028 coming in 4 years. You got baseball and softball. Both of them have been in the Olympics before and were not brought into the Paris Olympics, but they're being brought back. Obviously, those make a lot of sense since this is a US-based Olympics. Cricket was tried one other time in the 90s. So it's been in the Olympics before, but only once, and it was done as a trial. And now it's being brought in as a permanent sport. So that's going to be really interesting to watch cricket coming in. Flag football, first time ever. Flag football, you'll see a lot of other countries like Canada and Australia and other countries that play it. It'll be really interesting to see the next 4 years to see how popular flag football gets. I'm sure a lot of countries will start trying to play it. Lacrosse, obviously a big time American sport and Canadian sport. And then squash is also coming in. So these are the 6 new sports coming in. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so cricket is the second largest sport in the world behind soccer, football, international football. There's no question that should be in there. Just because America doesn't really play it doesn't mean that it's a massive game that a lot of countries play, especially India. Cricket needs to be in there. That should have never gone away or never. It should be in it every single year.
Completely agree.
I don't think, I hate to say this, but flag football should be in there. I don't think that's an international sport. I'm also a little hesitant to put lacrosse in because it's really just a North American sport. I remember watching, although it is growing, I remember watching an interview with Wayne Gretzky, and he said he used to play lacrosse and hockey. And he said he stopped playing lacrosse because it was too violent. And that's from Wayne Gretzky. But he did say that hockey is the second sport of Canada. Lacrosse is first. I was shocked to hear that
That's
from
cool.
Wayne Gretzky, but it is a bigger sport in Canada than people realize, and it's become bigger in the US. So I think lacrosse is right on the cusp of whether it should be in there. I think
I think
pickleball
it should be in there. I think it should be in there. I really do. I think the World Championships of lacrosse the last 5 years have gotten really big.
Yeah.
The US beat Canada in the 2023 World Championships,
Mhm.
and it was a great game. It was like 12-10. So
Yeah.
I mean, those are clearly the 2 best countries still.
But do you think Uzbekistan is going to play lacrosse?
No, but I know Australia plays it, and New Zealand plays it, England plays it. It's getting bigger than you
Yeah,
think.
it is. It's getting closer, and I think one of the ways you get a sport big enough is by putting it in the Olympics, let people watch it and go, "Oh, I want to try that." And
Apparently they play it in Germany now. They have it in French high schools. So I don't know. Lacrosse
yeah,
is
I
coming.
mean, maybe.
It's coming.
I'm not sure about squash. I think if squash should be in, pickleball should be in.
Pickleball should be in. I agree.
But I mean, out of those, cricket is by far the biggest sport that hasn't been represented.
Yeah,
It's
and
not.
if you're going
It's
to have
not close.
baseball, you have to have cricket. I mean, they're very similar sports, and
Well, cricket
cricket's
is
played
much
by
bigger
more.
worldwide.
Yeah, that's right.
Cricket is huge. So,
Although
we
baseball
don't
is
play.
played by all the Asian countries now, it's played by all the
Yeah.
Dominican countries. Caribbean
Yeah.
countries, all of the South American countries play it, Venezuela, all of them. I don't know. Baseball is bigger than you think too.
No, I think baseball needs to be in there, and if you have baseball, I think you need softball. So I'm cool with all these. I think flag football is the one that just got put in there for Americans' sake.
Yes. What's
Lacrosse,
funny
kind
is
of the same thing.
each host gets to choose two sports it can put in, right?
Hmm.
France chose breaking, which was pretty interesting because it's getting dropped for 2028.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know why they chose breaking, but um, the two sports we've chosen as a host country are flag football and lacrosse. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about the two sports they're dropping, breaking and boxing?
We both agree boxing should still be in there, and breaking is along the lines of the original intent of the Olympics, which had dancing and art and stuff like that, but it didn't fit. It was just, and it became a laughing stock with the
Ray gun,
Australian girl,
ray gun.
Reagan. That became just a joke. Like it made the whole thing a joke. Um, so that's an unfortunate legacy
They were
because
trying to promote
people
her
were,
like that was going to make it more popular, but the problem was
yeah,
it looked like
no,
an SNL skit, and
yeah,
that's the problem, is it looked
no,
like a
it
joke.
it didn't
So
help that sport at all. That art form or whatever you call it. I remember in the 80s, breakdancing was a big deal. They encouraged the gangs to do it instead of fighting with each other, to
hmm
have breakdance offs. And that was
hmm
kind of a cool thought, and it kind of worked a little bit.
hmm
There was plenty of turmoil between the gangs, but
You
this was
remember the old
one way.
parachute pants the guys used to wear, parachute
Oh yeah,
pants?
of course. But I think we've evolved from that to where it's more of a specialized thing and not so much just inner city between gang activity. But I don't- it's not around really on any large scale. It shouldn't be a sport in the Olympics.
Well, are you excited about the Los Angeles Olympics? You looking forward to it?
I think so. I think we're gonna have. I think the U.S. does this stuff pretty well. I think there's still gonna be those cranky athletes complaining about the water or the food choices, but generally, I think we won't have the same kind of self-inflicted wounds. I think they'll have beds. I think they'll have, but there's no way to tell whether they have roaches, a roach problem. Why didn't they see this
Yeah.
coming? So there'll be some little squabbles and things like that. And I'm sure some of the facilities, people will say something bad about. This one
Yeah.
has old bathrooms. What's that all about? Or but I think generally America's pretty good at these things.
I'm
So
looking forward to Los Angeles. I think it's gonna be a great Olympics. I like the additions of the new sports. I think that LA will be a good host. It'll be very Hollywoody though, so
yeah,
I think it might get a little tiring with all the
it,
Hollywoody
it
stuff. I think
it's going to
the
be
event will be
exhausting.
great. Yeah.
I think it's going to be exhausting by 2.5 weeks later.
And in terms of the 2024 Paris Olympics, I say 2 thumbs up. The events were fantastic. There were a lot of organizational problems that really surprised me. In the preview, I never would have guessed some of the scandals that came out and some of the organizational problems. I think Los Angeles will learn a lot from those and try to make, you know, adjustments and not make those same mistakes. But in terms of the actual events themselves, definitely far surpassed any previous Olympics, and the Americans did really, really well. So I was happy with that.
At the end of the day, I got as a consumer out of it what I wanted, which was very good entertainment, a lot of things to cheer for and be proud of and excited for and happy for the athletes that you're watching. So in that way, I think it was 5 out of 5 stars.
Mhm.
I do think there's no way to remove some of the scandalous stuff that you're going to have people, having sex off the Olympic Village property, or that's going to happen. 21-year-olds making mistakes, but and
People
arguments about
complaining about food, people complaining
food.
about beds,
Yeah,
that
that's
kind of
going to
stuff.
happen at the LA Olympics. Get ready for it. But um, oh, I saw a roach in my room. How I can't sleep in these conditions. Well,
The transgender stuff, I don't think we've solved that yet, and I
no,
know that it's a
no, because
very tough political issue, but I know that
it is.
the standard person who watches the Olympics doesn't want men to be in women's sports, and so that we've got to find a way to be able to test the athletes and make sure that they truly are either XY or XX,
Yeah.
and that they're competing in the right sport, and that it's fair. It has to be fair.
Yeah. Well, that certainly has not been resolved. I think we have a movement in the US trying to bring some inclusiveness to a group that has been in the shadows for a long time, forever. Um, and I think we haven't mastered yet how to be more inclusive for that group without it turning into an anti something else. And so
Mhm.
I think all sides need to take a look at if there's a marginalized small group, how can they be brought in without it being an anti-Christian thing?
Right.
Um, inclusivity should not be offensive.
Well, they said that they were trying to be inclusive in that parents' opening ceremony, but I think they got the exact opposite reaction. So LA's got to find
Yeah,
a way for it truly to be inclusive. That's what we want. We want everyone to
yeah.
feel included.
Everybody should be a part of this. Everyone should be there. Um, don't pick a Christian thing to jam your agenda into, and then expect everyone to. If you're against this, you're transphobic. You know, it's got
Mhm.
to be more like that wasn't thoughtful
No,
because
not at
you
all.
didn't have some scene from the Quran with trans people in it. Why not? You
My
know?
final thought on this Olympics, though, is that it was visually stunning.
Yeah.
Even in the opening ceremonies, which I think some of it I just couldn't believe what I was seeing from the standpoint of organizationally, it was kind of a mess. But there were portions of the opening ceremony that were visually stunning, especially when they lit the cauldron and when it flew up into the air. That was super cool. And then I think the closing ceremonies actually it might have been the first one I've ever watched. Were very well done with Marshawn
Yeah.
being the lead with the torch and everything. And
Yeah.
I think they kind of redeemed themselves a little bit on the closing ceremonies. So
I think one thing that hurt these Olympics was they got off to a bad start with all that rain. And it just threw a big blanket over the whole thing. It messed up the opening ceremonies. It messed up the way the sen was going to be used. Um, it really, the biking events in the rain were scary to watch. Like
mhm.
clearly, it was affecting the way these long distance bikers were
Yeah.
using their bikes on that type of cement with that slick.
Mhm.
It just it was unfortunate. You know, that's the stuff you
Yep.
can't control. That's the stuff that kind of hurt the first couple of days of the Olympics, I think. But once we broke out of that, I think the Olympics got a lot better. And I think
I agree.
not only did the US start hitting events that we were competitive in, but the athletes could compete at the highest levels with no obstacles to overcome other than the normal ones. So
Mm.
that's just unfortunate. I don't know that you can do anything about really bad weather. I mean, what happens in the LA games if it rains for 2 straight weeks?
Mhm.
They better think about it. You know, get as many venues indoors as you can.
Mhm.
Have backup venues maybe, um, and plans. You know,
That's the good news is that this was a good Olympics, but there were a lot of mistakes made. And so what that gives the LA committee is 4 years to find adjustments and find ways to
yeah,
avoid some of those mistakes. So that's a
right,
good thing.
right.
Well, guys, thank you very much for joining this week. We really enjoyed it and hope you enjoyed the Olympics. This is our wrap up for that topic. Of course, we'll have another Olympics to talk about here in another 4 years, and we'll look forward to it.
2 years,
Definitely like.
winter.
Oh, that's true. We got winter. You're right. 2 years. Italy. That'll be a lot of
I
fun too.
I enjoyed this Olympics a lot. I think some of the little squabble stuff I just kind of eliminate. I don't think about much. The competitors going at it hard. We had disappointments. We had glorious moments. We had stars emerge. We had all the things we're supposed to have. I think it was hilarious watching um, the women's water polo represented by um, Flavor Flav representing the
And the
or
videos of him in the pool with the girls playing was just hilarious.
hilarious, and it's
Yeah.
so cool. And you know, I was so happy that he did that. He took them under his wing because he heard a lot of them were working 3 jobs so they could play water polo and represent America.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
all our celebrities stepped up like that, we'd be in a better place.
I mean,
Um,
like the Snoop Dogg thing, at first I thought it was a little much because he was just on TV all the time. He was at every event, everything. But
yeah,
it's funny, I kind of warmed up to it. He was
yeah,
sitting with the parents. He was interviewing the parents. He
yeah,
was celebrating with them when their kid won a medal. I don't know. I kind of warmed up
I
to this.
loved it. I thought he became America's mascot, you know?
Kind of, yeah. Kind of.
And
And you know, it was cool because it felt like he really was just like a fan at the Olympics. He was just like a fan. It was
yeah,
kind of cool.
yeah,
You
he
know,
was like each one of us, except we don't have cameras following us around.
that's right.
Um, I love that. That's the entertaining stuff, you know? And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the Olympics is about entertainment. That's why
Hmm.
I like the LA stuff, and hopefully they'll keep doing that.
Agreed.
We can get the controversies down to silly stuff like I didn't like my pillow, and less
Hmm.
about, big social issues. I don't want to hear about social issues when
Hmm.
we're racing top track people against each other.
Right.
Um, it's so cool to watch, and I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as we did, and to listen to all these heartwarming stories about the women's rugby team or whatever. Just such good stuff.
And by the way, best performance ever by Team USA. So congratulations, Team USA. Very proud of you guys.
Yep, good
All right,
stuff.
like the video, and subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great stuff coming your way, and we'll see you next time.